Happy Monday. Happy Monday, everybody. This is your host, Christal Jordan. And you guys know if you're here on a Monday that we are doing Pop Culture Power. It's Pop Culture Power Monday, and we're starting a little bit later tonight because I had some stuff going on. You guys know that I am preparing to be out of the country later this week to celebrate my birthday and my anniversary and my husband's birthday. So I'm running a little bit late, but that's okay because we are here and we are together. If you are watching on Facebook, put an XO in the chat so I can see you. If you're watching on YouTube, just go ahead and put a one in the chat. I'm wanting to see who is joining and from where. I recently started making sure that we are sharing on both Facebook and YouTube so we can make sure to reach viewers in both on both networks. So if you are watching from Facebook, say hello. Let me know that you're out there. If you're watching on YouTube, you guys know I love you. I have a huge, I have a nice YouTube audience that is really faithful, and you guys are always there. And I appreciate that so much. Before we get started tonight, it has been so much happening, and there's so much I don't want to say negativity, but it feels like there's just the news is constantly inundated with dark stories. And so I wanted to be sure. And then a lot of my audience is new. And so you may not know about an inspirational book that I wrote a few years ago. This is it: How to Win When Ish Happens. 31 affirmations to build mental immunity in the midst of chaos. I wrote this during the pandemic because I needed it. And I feel like with the upcoming election and all the stories that we're seeing in the news, I just needed to promote something that's more positive. So you can get this on Amazon. You can go we just go online and just put. It's kind of difficult because the title has a little asterisk because my mother was not going to be happy with me if I had a title with a curse word if I had a book with a curse word in the title. So I had to put an asterisk there. But you can find this on Amazon. And basically, there are affirmations to help you to move forward and through difficult situations. I'll just read one of the affirmations before we get started. Day 6 is just a random one that I picked. My past circumstances and my present situation don't dictate the potential of my future. So if you need an encouraging word, you can pick this up, and I promise it will bless you. There is also a digital version of it in the Kindle store that's available for those of you that do not like to actually read something in your hand. If you want to look at it on your phone or on your Kindle, you can get a copy of it there. And of course, you guys know Dear Alpha Female, It's Not Him, It's You is available as well wherever books are sold. I've had a couple of conversations on Let's Get Crystal Clear that really just speak to my outlook and everything that I put into my journey, put all that into Dear Alpha Female, It's Not Him, It's You. Again, that is available anywhere books are sold. Amazon, Walmart, Barnes and Noble. You can go find either of those books. Hey, Monique, thank you so much for chiming in. But that being said, let's get to pop culture power because we have some heavy subjects to talk about tonight. The first one, I know that, hey from Jersey, it's your thing. Diane, thanks for joining tonight. We have some pretty heavy topics to talk about. You guys, I know that the Diddy situation seems to be just gaining momentum with every hour, not even with every day, but every hour. And so I wanted to talk about that, but I also want to give a little bit of context. One of the things that's really important to me on this channel is that we don't just run with headlines and trending topics without explaining a little bit of the backstory. I think that news and journalists with the movement, like the blogger movement, a lot of the research and all of that was removed from conversations. And so not even so much from a journalistic perspective. Sometimes I just, from a conversational perspective, just want to be able to give people a little bit more to the story than just running with something that's a emotional trigger. And so tonight, I want to I want to share with you guys some information that I came across that I think may shed a little bit of light. I'm not, this is all alleged, as we know. Everything that we're talking about in these cases are, in the Diddy case, is alleged because he has not been tried in a court of law. He has settled the lawsuit, one of the lawsuits he had with Cassie, and there could be some additional lawsuits that have been settled out of court and away from the public. But until he is proven in a court of law to be guilty, this is all alleged. Um, so before we get into the facts that I have to share with you guys today, I just want to point out on the 30th of September, 2024, as we are inundated with information about Diddy parties and freak offs and Shannon Sharp and an upcoming election and all this stuff that continues to come out. I just have to acknowledge that all of this, we were forewarned by a prophet. We were forewarned by a prophet that is a comedian. And this gentleman right here, I am going to say that all the information and all the trials and just news headlines that we continue to have to deal with were prefaced by a Shannon Sharp interview with this gentleman right here. This is who we have to blame. Not to blame for the actions, but he opened the can of worms. He opened Pandora's box. And ever since he did that interview, we have been getting more truth than we can digest. It is coming. It is coming hard and it is coming fast. So I just want to make sure that when we are talking about all of this information, a lot of us don't need to know, don't want to know. The prophet Cat Williams did say in 2024, all lies will be exposed. And he actually mentioned, did he mention a few other people that I'm sure we're going to be talking about before the year is over, but we have to give him his due. Something was boiling in his spirit when he sat down with Shannon Sharp, and life has never been the same. It has really never been the same since that Cat Williams interview. But now we've got to talk about, we've definitely got to talk about Diddy. And I wanted to bring up a few points that I don't think I'm hearing people talk about in conversation when it comes to him. I believe that even though this is not, now I want to be clear, nothing that I am saying tonight is to excuse, to pardon, or even to, it's no excuse. It's not a pardon. It's not even really an explanation. It's just information, right? That does not, just because we look and we see the reason that something happened or we see a potential cause, that does not excuse the behavior, nor does it make it right, nor does it take away from the pain of the victims that allegedly have been exposed to his wrongdoing. But I do want to point out that in a lot of cases with predators and people with predatory behavior, there is a method to the madness, and a lot of them were victims themselves. We realized this a few years ago, I think in 2021, with the R. Kelly situation. For years, I think 2 decades or even more, people realized that R. Kelly was committing predatory crimes against young people. And later, we learned after surviving Diddy that he himself had been a victim as well. And so I did a little bit of research online, and I learned that Sean Combs, as I said, we're going to start referring to him by his government name and stop calling him by these nicknames that kind of take away from the fact that he's a real person. It became this larger than life celebrity. But when he was a young boy growing up in Harlem, he attended Mount St. Michael Academy. Mount St. Michael Academy is a Catholic school in the Bronx. And we know that he graduated from there, and he actually sent his children. That school closed down, but he did send his children to Catholic schools as well. Now, what's interesting is that while Sean Combs, see, I can't even get used to, we're so used to calling him that, but while Sean was in school, he was an altar boy. And he was an altar boy when there was an officiant there by the name of Reverend Lynch. Now, shortly after Sean left, Reverend Lynch was accused of sexual abuse by one of the students. And there is actually a lot of information on that particular case online. There were not just Reverend Lynch, but there was also um, another school official that was guilty, actually found guilty of molestation at the time. Now, I want to make sure that I say that there have been no reports. Diddy has not, Sean Combs has not come out and said that he was abused. He has not spoken to any form of misconduct while he was at the school. So this is all potential speculation, but I do think that it kind of makes you think, right? When we hear that over 50 victims have now come out and accused Sean Combs of some type of abuse, we have to think about where that could have potentially came from. So there was a story in the New York Times that spoke about, and this is back in the 90s, in the mid 90s, that spoke about what happened at the school that he attended. It says a Roman Catholic priest and Morris brother are facing charges involving sexual abuse of students at a parochial preparatory academy in the Bronx, with which they were formerly connected. A Bronx district attorney announced the indictment resulted from an investigation by the federal and city authorities that began that year because of complaints from lay teachers at the school Mount St. Michael Academy. So there was Reverend Bernard Lynch, who was 41 at the time, a former campus chaplain, and also Mr. Gentile, that was one of the men that accused Reverend Lynch of sexual abuse. Now, Reverend Lynch was indicted on 2 counts of first-degree sexual abuse, 2 counts of third-degree sexual abuse, and 1 count of endangering the welfare of a child. Also, Brother Tom Brady was the acting principal during that time as well, and he was also charged with third-degree sexual abuse and endangering the welfare of a child. Now, we do know that these particular gentlemen were at the school while Sean Combs was there. And so I want to make sure that I'm clear. He has not said anything of the sort, but the fact that this happened while he was at that school is just a strange coincidence. I also want to point out that in addition to that happening to him while he was at school, not a lot of people know that Sean Combs actually opened his own school, and that school was basically it's a charter school that he opened in Harlem. Now there were issues with that as well. The school has distanced itself as of March of this year, and it's so interesting how those headlines. I had not heard about this until I did a little research yesterday, but after the lawsuit from Cassie was filed last year, it's almost been a year ago. Well, it was December of 2023, and so we're coming up on a year after that first lawsuit was filed, and he settled. The school that he founded initially in, I believe, 2016, distanced themselves from him and severed their relationship with him, and officially in March. Um, Ironically, the school had issues before that. There were issues, it says 14 people, including parents, students, and former employees, describe an extremely dysfunctional school environment marked by high teacher turnover and frequent violence. Without a full teaching staff, students could go months without being taught some subjects and instead be found sitting in the lunchroom for hours at a time. Leadership was unstable. The school had several principals or interim principals over a span of 7 years. In spite of big name backers, one of which was Ellen DeGeneres and a lot of Sean Combs' very influential and wealthy friends, um, and he actually donated $1 million to the school himself. In spite of all that, teachers say they were short on necessities like chairs and computers. Um, it's very strange, and there was botched record keeping, which resulted in incorrect grades, transcript schedules, and test data. Lots of violent fights happening at the school, and parents were not. Now, this was a charter school, but it appears that students were able to stay there. They say that Capital Prep did not inform them about things like a bed bug outbreak. Multiple teachers say it was typical for law enforcement to be called on students on a regular basis. Now, and I definitely understand, Diane, that many charter schools don't have qualified teachers or administration. And I agree. I actually taught school for 1 year myself back in Tulsa, Oklahoma, at a charter school. I did have a bachelor's degree myself, and most of the teachers did, but there was definitely some behavior that did not align with my own moral values, which is why I left the school. But I do want to say that I think all of this is alleged. Well, the school actually severed their ties with Sean Combs. So some of these allegations, and this is not to say that he was responsible directly for any of that, but what is true and what is proven is that once he opened the school, he did not. It was all for namesake. He was not present. He actually stood the students up for graduation and sent a video, and claimed that he, was not able to make it. And so a lot of the parents that sent their children there in this article in the New York Times acknowledged that they sent their child there because of the celebrity connection. And I think if there's anything that we can learn from all of this, it is that just because someone is gifted or just because someone has acquired fame, that does not make them someone that you should entrust your children with. I think that goes without being challenged. Someone said in the chat earlier that a lot of schools, specifically Catholic schools, and we know there was at one point it seemed like there were Catholic schools across the country that were coming out with allegations of pedophilia and different, especially all boys schools and things like that. But I think there's skepticism. But when it comes to religion and it comes to celebrity, a lot of times people will entrust their children without asking questions, without being involved. I can remember myself when I was raising my children, my son. After I went through a divorce, there was not really like an active male role model in my son's life, and I considered taking my son to Bishop Eddie Long's church. And I remember really contemplating that and praying about it. And fortunately, I decided not to do that. And considering some of the stories and things that came out, I was glad that I went with my gut instinct and did not take my son. But I do think that I've had the privilege, and I can acknowledge that, of being around a lot of celebrities and kind of seeing the hypocrisy behind some of it. So I know that everything that glitters is not gold because I've seen it firsthand. But I think that if nothing else, hopefully parents and guardians will start to look at some of these stories and realize that a record deal, an opportunity to be in a movie, an opportunity to be have financial success is not worth sacrificing the potential safety of your child. I also think that we have to do more, have more conversations, and do more. There has to be more research and more studies done on how do we take care of people after we learn that they have become victims, right? So so many predators, like I said, have a history of being victimized themselves. What are we doing for people that, children, young people, or just victims, period? What are we doing to make sure that they get the necessary mental health, or even just rehabilitation to make sure that they are not going to um, repeat the behavior that was done to them? I have not heard anyone. If anyone is in the chat and can share that with me, I would love to do some research, and I would love to have a therapist join the show to talk about that. But when someone is a victim, and it's been, and many times, documented, what are we doing to make sure that we get them the healing that they need so that they don't use that pain and aggression to victimize another child? Uh, that happens far too often, and I think that that's not something that we talk about. We look at, like I said, we can talk about R. Kelly in a little bit of a different manner because he has been, um, you know, convicted. With Sean Combs, he has not been convicted. So these are all, allegations. There are a lot of allegations, but they're still allegations nonetheless. But with someone like R. Kelly, who there's people that have testified and have got on camera and said they knew that he was that he had been victimized as a sexually assaulted as a young boy. Why, where was the help for him that could have potentially prohibited him from exacting that same scenario on other young people? And I think, again, I want to make sure that I state, I'm not saying that this is not an excuse. This is not anything that I don't want to negate the pain and uh, the suffering that anyone's victims have went through. But what I am saying is that if we want to keep prevent this from happening in the future, we need to figure out how to deal with victims. Like I said, there are over 50 new victims that have come out to speak. Now, I'm not suggesting that all of those victims are telling the truth, but that's also not our place to judge until they went through a court of law. But if 50 people came out, you can be assured that probably 150 people have gone through something. The amount of victims that do not speak out is shocking and is saddening. So I think a lot of times people say, well, all these people are coming out. Well, these people are coming out, but can you imagine the number of people who are not coming out because they don't want to admit, they don't want to go through the public scrutiny of being, attacked by fans or people that are in support of the person because of their fame. And so I think, I'm sure I could find statistics, but common sense tells us that if two people accuse someone of rape, 9 times out of 10, that person has committed that act before, and it could be a victim that does not speak up. We know that when it comes to abuse and especially SA, there are a lot of victims that are ashamed and don't want to be a part of being ridiculed publicly. Now, to be fair, we also know that when there's a celebrity that is very wealthy, um, that people do come out and lie because they want to, potentially get to the money and take advantage of that. So they become victims as well. And I think, people can see that. But trust me, there are a lot of people that have not spoken out. This is Sean Combs' situation it dates back over 30 years. So if we have 50 people that are speaking up, like I said, I mean, you could probably multiply that by 3 at least for the amount of people that have dealt with it and have not said anything about it, because it could affect them. It may affect they may see that as something that could affect their career or their reputation or just their state of mind. I mean, can you imagine what some of these victims, if what they are saying is true, what they feel like on a daily basis, hearing these things shared via social media and repeated on the news on a hour by hour, basis? It's got to be almost like reliving some of the pain that they went through. So I did want to share that about his past. Again, I want to make sure that I state he has not come out and said that he was a victim. I'm just sharing information that two school officials, while he was at school in high school, the school that he attended, there were two officials, the principal and a chaplain, that were convicted of child endangerment and sexual assault. So we'll just have to see. Now, this case, I initially, put in my headline, I was wondering, like, some people are like, we want this to be over. But the reality is, this case is not going to be over anytime soon. There are still victims coming forward. There are at least 3 documentaries in the making, and we still don't have a court date, as of yet. So I think it's safe to say that we're locked in, and this conversation is going to be going well into 2025. What I hope is that, as opposed to just having the conversation in news outlets using it for entertainment and to drive their numbers, that we will start to have conversations as a community on how we can protect our children in a different way. I would say to any parent out there, I've had so many people over during my career have come to me and said, Christal, how can I get my son or my daughter in the movies, or how can I get them in commercials, and how can I get them connected with the producer? And I would just, I think our children are should be our biggest, our most precious, commodity. Like as a parent, my children were, I mean, for me, you protect them at all costs. And I think that we need to make sure that we are encouraging people to be more concerned about their children's welfare than they are about their children being next to a celebrity. I had a conversation on Let's Get Crystal Clear with a therapist, and we talked about the fact that a lot of the parents in the surviving R. Kelly documentary received a lot of backlash, which I think was well deserved, because you cannot just take your child to, they, at that point, people were taking their children to a man that they knew. There were numerous allegations that he was a predator. And yet some of these parents felt that it was still okay to take their daughters to him backstage, to the studio, and would leave their children with him. So parents have to take some of the blame. I do think when it comes to a situation with schools, you would think that your child would be safe, specifically in a religious school or private school, but that's just not the case. And I think I've personally had three young men come and tell me that they come out to me and express that they had experienced assault, sexual assault, and it was, at church. So I just think that we have to be careful. I also think that as we're looking at the facts, we also have to be open to hearing how these things happened and how can we prevent them from happening in the future. The bad news has not stopped. As we know, there are a lot of other celebrities that are names are being thrown around in this issue with Sean Combs. I do want to say, for people that watch this channel, you all know that I represent Chili from TLC, and I've seen some things connecting her. And I like I said, I've been with her over 20 years now, and so I see a lot of false things circulating, things that are suggesting that she knew things or was around and things while I was there, and I can definitely say that's not true. Saying all this to say, just be careful with what you listen to and what you believe, right? Just based on what someone says, because there are a lot of people that are using this situation to just be have really flagrant allegations and just get clicks and views. So don't take anyone's word. If you're really interested, then do your research, but don't just listen and assume that people are connected or guilty. There's been a lot of allegations, there are a lot of big names thrown around and connected, and I just think that for you have to realize these are all people as well, and so repeating false information can be hurtful to someone because they're not just a celebrity, they're a human just like you and I. Speaking of a human just like you and I, Sean Combs is not the only person that needs to be concerned about an upcoming docu-series or documentary about their life. Today it was reported that Chris Brown also has a new documentary, was announced by Quiet on the Set, about his history with DV. Now, this case it bothers me for numerous reasons. Number one, if you guys watch my channel, you know that I'm a fan of Chris Brown. I just attended his last concert here in Atlanta. Um, and I also know that when we initially learned about Chris Brown's issues with DV, he was 18 years old. And the situation with Rihanna was heartbreaking. He took accountability for it. She talked about it, and he served his time and things moved on. Now, over the years, there have been whispers, no other actual convictions for against him. I want to be clear that we say we're not sure what's going to happen in this documentary, but what I do know is that if there were court a court conviction against Chris Brown, trust and believe we definitely would have heard about it. There are a lot of allegations and, like I said, whispers about him. But again, until someone is convicted, or even until we there's public information about them settling a case, and sometimes celebrities settle cases because they don't want to go through the negative publicity, right? That is such a thing as well. But this case, like I said, is unfortunate because I think there are two sides to it. There are allegations of additional violence, but then there are also a lot of people who are have resigned themselves to just judging a book by a mistake they made when they were younger. I think that's unfair. I also know personally that there have been several women that have accused him of um, assault, sexual assault, and those cases have been not just dismissed, but proven that it was a lie. It was an it was just them trying to get money, them trying to probably get fame, angry because maybe they didn't get what they wanted. And I understand that we have to give victims an opportunity to talk, and we should definitely make sure that we don't assume that they're not being honest. But we do know, and I do know in at least two cases from knowing the legal team, someone on the legal team, that these young ladies were acknowledged they were lying. So, but what's interesting about that is you don't ever hear, we never hear that, right? So what happens is there's a headline that he is accused of a crime, sexual assault, or even worse. And then when that is recounted and the person acknowledges that that's not true, there's no headline. There may be like a small little byline later. And so what that does is that makes people assume, well, I just keep hearing all these negative things about this person. And that's not necessarily the case. Now, this this documentary is coming out at the end of October. I'm not sure if there's going to be new information, but a lot of the documentaries don't necessarily have facts. They have people that are willing to talk, right? And so I just think that we need to make sure that before we put the guilty stamp on someone, that we allow them to go through their due diligence. And that's kind of all I have to say about that. It it is unfortunate, but if he is guilty of being a repeat offender, then he also needs to pay the price. The Dalai Allah says, "Where there is smoke, there is fire." You would think that, and I can say that I would have thought that as well. But being exposed to the entertainment industry and being around situations where I've seen people are just lying for a check, I've learned that that's not necessarily the case. I also want to acknowledge that in many of these situations, a lot more is at play than just a person doing something wrong. A lot of it is just there's discriminatory situations specifically against Black men, and we don't like to live there, but that is also the truth. We can't act like that's not a realistic thing. So I just think that it's unfortunate that these type of situations are used for entertainment, so people are going to tune in to be entertained. But if that is the case, that should not be entertaining. None of this should be entertaining. This Sean Combs uh just mess is playing out, and it's playing out. We're talking about it on Pop Culture Power. This should not really be a part of what entertains us. And so I think that you know, we just have to rethink the way we look at things. I do agree, Daliala, that there could be a lot of times two things are true, right? And in many cases, um, victims or victims may see an opportunity and may not be telling the truth, and then that person could also be, um, be a predator. The two things can definitely be true. And coincidentally, if they are a predator, then it makes it a lot easier for someone to accuse them and get a payday, right? Because it's like, well, I saw you do it over here, and I want to get a payday as well. Elite Leo says CB was also named in Lil Rod's lawsuit. He was always at Diddy's parties because he hangs with the Sons, and Diddy's son does have an SA lawsuit against him. He does. As far as I'm gonna tell you what, there there are so many people, and I'm not gonna speak on what I know professionally because that would be, um, publicists are a lot like lawyers. There's a lot that we see, there's a lot that we're around, and we cannot speak on it, right? Because, well, I wouldn't, because that would be unethical in my opinion. So I've seen, let's just say I've seen a lot, and I have never been at I've been at a party. I've never been at one of his personal parties, right? Where at his home, I'll say that. Um, but I do believe that if you were to take names of all the celebrities that have been at a party that he threw, I don't think anybody in Atlanta that is a part of the entertainment scene has not been at one of his parties. Like, that's just that all of us have been. I'm not talking about a freak off. I'm talking about just a regular party. And so, but my point is, Chris Brown is not the only celebrity that has been at a lot of his parties. And I also want to point out that African American and Black Hollywood celebrities are not the only ones that are at his party. I think we talked about last week the fact that one of the things that makes Sean Combs such a big star and such a big case is that his fame and popularity transcends color and race. The people that wanted to be at his parties and wanted to be affiliated with him are not just Black people. So there, that you cannot be guilty by association, or the entire industry, movie, music, sports, is guilty. Not just music, Hollywood, like movies, television, sports, athletes. Like, it's just it's never ending. So there's no way for people to assume who's guilty by association unless they've seen video. Other than that, we have to just assume everyone is innocent until proven guilty. And also, it's just, this is unfortunate because I think a lot of people are going to, the speculation is going to hurt a lot of people. I have watched videos of Justin Bieber. I've been around and seen Justin Bieber, and it's heartbreaking to see what some of these allegations and suggestions are, could potentially do to him. He's someone that's spoken out about mental health issues and just being overwhelmed and filled with anxiety because of some of the things that he's dealt with. And I think when people are posting headlines, and I see some of these YouTube videos with cartoon animations, and I think people forget that these are people that have to see this, and they're not immune. I can say from representing a lot of celebrities that they're just like us. They watch YouTube and they see their names come up. They probably have Google alerts or all types of alerts on their information. And so when something goes off, they're well aware of it. I mean, as a publicist, that was one of my jobs, is to have detectors on my phone whenever one of my clients' names was mentioned or came up online. And so it's inhuman to assume that they don't see some of the things that you see. And I think that we have to just think about that in the way that we report, the way what we share, and what we kind of pay attention to, that this could be life altering. I think that if someone, couldn't handle the speculation and the negative attention, and they ended up hurting themselves in some way, that, in my opinion, some of these outlets should be liable for that, because they are attacking people and about situations that are not. It's one thing to say someone was dressed badly, on the red carpet. That's kind of what you sign up for when you become a public figure. But these type of allegations are so sensitive, of such a sensitive nature, that I think there should be some type of regulations put on what is posted because it can be very, very damaging. And none of us would want to be on the other end of that. So that is what I wanted to share today in Pop Culture Power. It's kind of heavy. It's kind of heavy. I'll admit it's kind of heavy, but that is what's happening um, today. I will say that in good news, I do have a little bit of good news for you guys. I have a upcoming article on Candace Dillard Bassett, who is nearing the end of her pregnancy, but I had a great interview with her. And I really appreciate and admire the fact that she left Real Housewives of Potomac. As much as I loved her on Real Housewives of Potomac, she left when she revealed that she was pregnant because she wanted to make sure that her mental health was in check, and it was just too much stress and too much negative energy on the show. And so she made the decision that was best for her and her husband and her new little baby that was on the way at that time. So I think that I look forward to sharing more of that with you guys this weekend or this week because it was just a great interview and she shared a lot about her feelings about the upcoming season of Potomac. Potomac returns on Sunday. I have a review of that show coming up as well. So we'll probably talk about that next Monday, what you all are thinking about Potomac. Now, for those of you that are Potomac fans like myself, you know that this season is going to be it definitely kicks off no holds barred. We're revisiting the issue that happened with Karen Hooker after she was um, actually arrested for DUI, and the show kicks off with that. So we're off to the races, but we're missing Candace, whose presence will definitely be missed, and we're also missing Robin, who a lot of people were probably not upset that she's not there. I personally didn't have such a issue with Robin until the last season when she was obviously just miserable and unable to really handle it, and obviously did not want to be honest about what was happening at her home with her husband. And I felt like there was a lot going on with her and Juan that she obviously needed to get off the cameras and deal with. And so her absence is probably a little bit more um, justified than Candace, but kudos to Candace for taking initiative to do what was best for her. I do think that Candace had some moments, Diane, but I also think that Candace was young, and we kind of saw her grow up a little bit when she first, when the first season of Potomac, Candace was a child, and she was not an adult in any way, shape, form, or fashion. But at this last season, I think season 8, she had grown a lot, and um, I think that was definitely reflected in a lot that was going on. I also, her mouth is deadly, but I have to say, you guys know, reality TV does not live unless there's some drama. And what I do like about Candace is the fact that she's witty and she's very smart. She's very intellectual, and just me personally, this may be wrong. Okay, I'll admit this. This could be one of my own weaknesses, but I love a girl that is quick-witted. I love quick wit. I respect it. I don't like just toxic behavior, but what I do appreciate is just the quick wit and the intellect. And I think that she definitely has that. I definitely think that she has some maturing to do, but we all do. We all did when we were young. She's in her mid 30s, and so she definitely had some growing to do. But I think making the choice to save her marriage and protect her unborn baby were admirable at a time when we're talking about people that are willing to put their children that are here in harm's way and just for the price of fame. So with that being said, from that perspective, I actually appreciated her choice to put her family first. And I think that if she stayed on the show, she actually acknowledged that she had an egg retrieval that failed because she was just under so much stress from the show. So she did what was best for her. And I think that should be applauded. As far as the rest of the cast, we will talk about that on Monday because trust me, there is a lot to talk about this season. Mia, just know, put a pin in Mia's name and just know that we are coming back and we're going to be talking about Mia at length. That's probably going to be like our big, between Mia and Karen, we have a lot to talk about on Monday with Pop Culture Power. Outside of that, you guys be sure to tune in tomorrow at 8:30 for Let's Get Crystal Clear. And then Wednesday at 8 p.m. for the Dating Diary. Scorpio Mo and I have an all new topic that I'm interested to hear what you guys think about. And remember, on Friday, there will be no relationship recap because I will be somewhere on a boat or in the water or on the beach with my husband. So I won't see you guys Friday, but I will be back on Monday. And trust me, you will want to tune in for Pop Culture Power. It'd be a lot lighter next week. We had to talk about Sean Combs today because it's just so many people are just overwhelmed with the fact that this was happening. Most people in entertainment knew a lot about it, but the fact that it's now made pop culture news and it's affecting a lot of celebrities. And I had to acknowledge that information was released on the Chris Brown documentary that kind of like took us by surprise because we're all sitting here waiting on Diddy's 50 Cent's documentary on Diddy and didn't even realize that ID was secretly putting together this documentary on Chris Brown and DV and just all these, alleged victims that are coming out. So I think we just kind of got blindsided. Last thing I want to say, like I said, is just remember that all that glitters is not gold. This is all entertainment. But at the end of the day, just because someone is gifted, just because someone is wealthy, does not make them a good person, does not make them a conscientious person, does not make them a responsible person. And so just be sure that when you are entrusting your family, your children, or even yourself, that you look at more than just a dollar sign or more than just the number of followers or likes they have on social media. Last thing also is I am going to be having a conversation with my girl Tawanda Braxton. I don't know how many of you all are Braxton family viewers of Braxton Family Values or the new Braxton, the reboot that is back. Congratulations to Tawanda and her fiance Sean. They will be visiting with me. We will be having a great conversation about the fact that they decided, well, actually, Sean decided that he had found a good thing and proposed. And how that is going to play out on this season of the Braxtons on WeTV. The Braxtons has been on WeTV for years. They went away for a while, but WeTV has drugged them back. And so I'm interested to see what you guys think about the series this season, but very, very happy. I know Tawanda well, represented her for a short period of time, but I'm very happy for her and Sean. They've been together for like 9 years. So, and she came out of a bad situation, which I'm glad that she was able to get deliverance from. And, she's another example that there's always love after. There's always a second chance, third chance, fourth chance for love. So never give up on that. This has been Monday's edition of Pop Culture Power. Please, if you are watching this later after the live, make sure that you leave your comments. Again, all this information, most of this information is alleged, but I do think it was relevant to the conversation that's happening on social media and actually just in media, period. This is like mainstream media at this point. So leave your comments. Let me know what you think. Let me know, did you know that Sean Combs, attended a school that there were sexual predators that were convicted a few years after he left? Did you know about that? Did you know that he had a charter school that he started in 2016? The same year that he was listed as one of the wealthiest African American men in the world by Forbes. So that just goes to show you that, again, all that glitters is not gold. Just because you see that money doesn't mean that that's an opportunity to connect or to worship. We shouldn't be worshiping anyone, because humans are all fallible and able to make mistakes and are all flawed, right? So anyway, before I get too preachy, let me get out of here. I will see you guys right back here tomorrow at 8:30 for Let's Get Crystal Clear for another riveting conversation. The conversation I had last week about women and masculinity and femininity. A lot of you guys are sleeping on that. Check that out. Share that, please. Share that if you know someone that needs to hear that. And again, pick up a copy of How to Win When Ish Happens. We all are dealing with a lot of ish right now, this upcoming election that is crazy. We are not going to talk about that, but you may need 31 affirmations to build mental immunity in the midst of chaos. And I think that's what really gets you through when you have a strong mindset and you are focused on what's best for you. That's when you can be successful. And for all my ladies out there that don't want to give up on love, get your copy of Dear Alpha Female. It's not him, it's you. Because sometimes we need to fix ourselves so that we can be ready to receive the love that God has for us. All right. That being said, I am out of here. I love you all for watching. Make sure you like this on the way out. If you're watching via Facebook, make sure that you like this before you click off. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you like and subscribe if you are not a subscriber. And again, I will see you guys right back here on tomorrow for Let's Get Crystal Clear. Have a good night.